Welcome to your friendly neighborhood historian, where we discuss just enough history to inform, intrigue, and entertain. I'm Bill Petro. The history of the first American Christmas, 1776. It is called the first American Christmas because the Declaration of Independence was created the previous summer, essentially divorcing America from England and declaring our country an independent nation. But perhaps it would be more accurate to call it the first United States Christmas, quoting from the first line of that declaration, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. Admittedly, the country had not yet created a solid form of government. The Articles of Confederation were not produced until 1781. The Articles of Confederation were not produced until 1781, nor was the subsequent U.S. Constitution until 1788. But there is no doubt that Americans saw themselves as independent of England. At least some did. But these patriots had to fight for their independence in a war of independence, a Revolutionary War. What happened on Christmas 1776? You've seen the picture of George Washington crossing the Delaware. He led the American Continental Army across the Delaware River to attack British forces in Trenton, New Jersey on Christmas of 1776. The Patriots had met with an unsuccessful fall, experiencing defeats in New York. Supplies were low, and so was morale. The British had overrun Fort Washington and Manhattan, taking 2,000 American prisoners. 90% of the Continental Army soldiers who had served at Long Island were gone. Men had deserted, feeling that the cause for independence was lost, and the line between an American patriot and a loyalist to England was thin, and hard times made it easier to cross that line. Even the 44-year-old General George Washington was discouraged, having written to his cousin in Virginia, "I think the game is pretty nearly up." But Trenton proved to be the turning point of the war. The Battle of Trenton was pivotal. The Battle of Trenton was a pivotal one during the war. After Washington had crossed the icy Delaware River on Christmas, he marched the main forces of the Continental Army, 2,400 men, for 4 hours, the 9 miles south to Trenton, against Hessian auxiliaries of the British Army. Washington planned 3 separate river crossings using cargo boats and ferries. However, only one made it across the 300-yard wide river that night, amid snow and sleet, enabled by strong New Englanders who were experienced seamen. Washington chose as his challenge or countersign for the crossing this phrase, "Victory or death." The enemy was called Hessians because 65% of these soldiers came from the German states of Hesse-Kassel and Hesse-Hanau. In total, these auxiliaries comprised a quarter of the British land forces. They were called auxiliaries. Because, unlike mercenaries who voluntarily fight for a foreign government for pay, these soldiers were hired out by their own government, to whom they remained in service. The Hessian states received a significant source of income from loaning out highly trained and disciplined fighters. The Hessian states received a significant source of income from loaning out highly trained and disciplined fighters like these to the British, to the tune of 30,000 total soldiers. Indeed, using these foreign fighters was one of the 27 grievances the colonies had declared as a violation of the colonists' rights against King George III in the U.S. Declaration of Independence. Washington did something unusual that turned the tide. Washington did something unusual that turned the tide. Attacking during the bitter winter was not uncommon. It's been done for centuries before and since, including during the World War II Battle of the Bulge. Nor was the night attack unusual. On December 23, 1776, George Washington met with Dr. Benjamin Rush, a Declaration of Independence signer, and amongst the few congressmen who were still in Philadelphia. He confided to Rush a stunning and momentous decision to launch an unexpected attack on the Hessians. What was remarkable was that Washington made a daring surprise attack on Christmas, a holiday observed by the German troops. The Hessians had lowered their guard during their celebrations and stationed no long-distance outposts or patrols. He inspired his troops with Thomas Paine's The American Crisis. They would shout the following words as they pressed their attack. "These are the times that try men's souls." Caught unprepared at about 8 a.m. on the cold morning of December 26th, the battle was fierce but short against the sleepy 1,400 Hessians who were stationed there. Within 2 hours, 900 of the Hessians surrendered, though a third crossed the Assunpink Creek to escape at the cost of only 4 American lives. A week later, on January 2nd, 1777, Washington would fight again as he repulsed an attack by British regulars in Trenton under the command of Lord Charles Cornwallis. A week later, on January the 2nd, 1777, Washington would fight again as he repulsed an attack by British regulars in Trenton under the command of George Cornwallis. A week later, on January 2nd, 1777, Washington would again fight as he repulsed an attack by British regulars this time in Trenton under the command of Lord Charles Cornwallis at what would be called the Battle of Assunpink Creek, located south of Trenton. The next day, the Americans marched 10 miles south to fight the Battle of Princeton, defeating Cornwallis's rear guard before retreating to Morristown, New Jersey, for the winter quarters. News of Washington's initiative raised the spirits of the American colonists. Washington's actions enabled the Continental Army to reassert American control of much of New Jersey and significantly improved the morale and unity of the colonial army and American militias. Cornwallis would ultimately surrender to Washington almost 5 years later, on October 19, 1781. But Cornwallis was unwilling to face Washington, pleading illness, so he sent instead his Brigadier General Charles O'Hara to present his sword. Washington similarly had his second-in-command, Major General Benjamin Lincoln, accept Cornwallis's sword. And so ended the fighting of the American War of Independence. Thank you for listening. I'm Bill Petro, your friendly neighborhood historian. You can find more details on this topic and others on my website at billpetro.com.